On today's show, the Atlanta Hawks are still rolling. The NCAA Tournament is about to begin. There are NBA draft ramifications. We'll get into all of that and more right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2193 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Tuesday evening into Wednesday. Today's podcast sponsored by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. If FanDuel will give you a chance to earn bigger potential wins right now with the college basketball parlay profit boost, head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. And on today's podcast, we'll be diving into the latest with the Hawks as far as their winning streak is concerned and the game on Wednesday in Dallas. And then later on in the podcast, a look at the NBA draft through the lens of the NCAA Tournament, which begins really today as I'm recording this podcast, but in earnest on Thursday afternoon. But we'll dive in now at the beginning of this podcast to how the Hawks are playing at the moment. And Atlanta has won 10 straight games. If you missed it, I did a full breakdown of the win on Monday, which was their 10th straight victory. And honestly, a sound defeat of the Orlando Magic at home, in which was probably the biggest game of the season so far for the Hawks. They played very well, great vibes, and a good win, and a podcast that was a lot of fun to record from the arena after that game was over. Before we dive into the game on Wednesday, which is another big one for the Hawks, is every single game right now is big with the streak ongoing. I got a question from a listener named Josh who says, how long could the winning streak go? And I'm not trying to round the parade, but also where is the most likely place for the streak to potentially end? So I'll talk about it just in a second. The Hawks will be favored in the game on Wednesday in Dallas, barring a big change in personnel. So you could say they're actually projected to win a 10th game in a row, an 11th game in a row when they play on Wednesday in Dallas. From there, if you go by just projections or expectations or point spreads or any of that stuff, the most likely place, if you want to go through that lens, is probably what transpires on Friday in Houston. The Hawks have to visit the Rockets. The Rockets are 41-26 as I record this podcast. They're 23-9 at home. If I had to guess right now, pre-injury reports and 3 days ahead of that game, I think the Hawks would be underdogs at tip-off in that game, most likely. But at the same time, Houston's not playing incredibly well right now. In fact, they're 4-5 in the last 9 games. That includes a bad loss to the Steph Curry-less Warriors a few days ago. They're also only 10-9 in the last 19. So, while Houston's a good team and you're playing on the road, that's a tough test for sure. And that will be on paper their most difficult game in a long time. That's not like playing OKC or even like Detroit right now. I think Houston is not as good as those teams. So, anyway, that's on the horizon. But if the Hawks do perhaps win the next 2 games, they sweep the Dallas and Houston Texas trip and get the streak to 12, they would come back on Saturday to play Golden State at home. Steph Curry might not play in that game, plus the game is back at home. It is a back-to-back with travel, so it's a tough schedule spot. The Hawks have not had a back-to-back in a very long time after having a ton of those early in the season. And that, by the way, without going crazy on this, the Hawks had a very, very difficult schedule for a long time, both in opponent quality and, crucially, logistics, travel, back-to-backs, frequency. And then during the stretch, they've been much more favorable with actually getting rest and opponents, but that will change again in the future. And then if they were to beat the Warriors for 13 in a row, they have Memphis at home on Monday. And that's a very advantageous game as well. So it's not that hard to imagine the streak getting to 14. I would not project that to happen because it's hard to win every single game in the NBA. It just is. That's the reality. And by the way, that's part of why it's really a lot of kudos to this Hawks team for winning 10 in a row, is that it's never easy to win NBA games. So I would say the odds of it getting to 14 are not that high. And it would be a lot of fun, though, if it did. In fact, the Hawks go to Detroit next Wednesday, the 25th, for an ESPN game against the number 1 seeded Pistons. That would be a big, big, big game if the Hawks had won 14 games in a row. So it's a long time from now, but that'd be a fun one. But all that said, the question is, how long could it go? It could go for a while, I have to say. At the same time, the single most likely place for the streak to end is probably Friday in Houston. But with how the Hawks are playing, it is certainly not hard to see them winning that game on the road. The Rockets are beatable, and the Hawks are playing their best basketball in a long time. So don't cut your chicks before they hatch, obviously. Even Wednesday, the game is not going to be super duper easy on paper. But if they win on Wednesday, Friday, every single game gets more and more significance because the streak gets longer and longer. And that's just the name of the game when you're in the midst of a long one like this. From here, A little bit of a preview of Hawks Mavericks real fast here before we dive into some NCAA tournament through the lens of the NBA draft, as we always do annually on this podcast. The Hawks just faced the Mavericks actually a week ago today, as I'm recording this on Tuesday. Atlanta won that game at home. That was their 7th straight win. And the Hawks led most of the way. If you missed that game, Jalen Johnson kind of put it away in the closing minutes with a big-time kick as a star that he would kind of do. And the Hawks had one of their better offensive games the entire season that night. They had 60 points in the paint. They won the glass. The starting lineup was fantastic in that game, as it has been for most of this streak. They were not great defensively against a Mavs team that has some pretty ugly offensive numbers for the season. But they got the job done. They held serve at home. That was part of this streak. Dallas is not exactly crushing it lately, we'll say. They are 4-20 in their last 24 games. With that said, they are 2-2 in the last 4, and that includes a road win in Cleveland a few days ago. That was not kind of a surprise to everyone involved, including, I know, Cavs fans. But Dallas is definitely in the middle of the tank race. They are at the same time a lot more talented, and I would say they are trying harder than some of the teams near the bottom of the league. They're still definitely battling for, ping pong balls. And, for instance, if guys get dinged up, they have been sitting them, like Klay Thompson rested in the game the other day, for example. But they're still playing more of their guys more often than most of the bottom tier teams are. As far as this game is concerned, the Mavs have 2 guys out for the season in Kyrie Irving and Derek Lively. No surprise there. Daniel Gafford is one of their best center right now. He is questionable to play in the game. Caleb Martin is questionable, and then Brandon Williams, a backup guard for them, is doubtful as of the injury report on Tuesday evening. They do have Cooper Flagg, who is their best player already as a rookie, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, Max Christie, Klay Thompson, Chris Middleton, etc. So they're not totally devoid of talent. They are definitely a step up from the teams like Sacramento, Brooklyn, Washington. Like, they're not very good, but they're better than Memphis right now, for example. Like, they're probably in the bottom couple of tiers of the league, but they're not totally devoid of talent. On the Hawks side, Jonathan Kuminga is listed as questionable with left knee injury management. If you listen to the show regularly, you will know I asked Quinn about that a few days ago when he had the same listing, and Quinn gave me a total non-answer and did not enjoy being asked that question. I don't know what to make of that. Injury management is certainly kind of just what it is. That means the Hawks basically have their eye on his left knee. It's the same knee that was injured before the trade even happened. Then he came back, and it's, I guess, a re-injury because he's been out again. But he did come back and play on Monday. He was not great on Monday, but he looked a little bit better than he did the last time he was playing on Thursday. So anyway, he is questionable. That's the only player listed on the injury report for the Hawks as of Tuesday evening, which is a positive sign. So there's a decent chance they're at full strength. And even if they want to hold Kuminga out, they would still, I'm sure, be favored in the game, even on the road in Dallas. As I record this, there actually is no official line at FanDuel because of all the injury uncertainty with Kuminga, with Gafford, etc. But again, I'm very confident the Hawks will be favored in the game at tip-off. And if they can win it, they have a pretty clear path to keep rising up the standings. I said this briefly at the end of the show on Monday night, but as of Tuesday morning, the Hawks were a game and a half out of 5th in the East. As I record this, the results are still pending for Tuesday night's game, so keep that in mind. You probably know more than I do right now as you listen, but it's a big day actually in the Eastern Conference standings. Miami plays at Charlotte on Tuesday night. OKC is the team that they're actually in Orlando, so Orlando will be an underdog tonight at home, for example, et cetera, et cetera. So Philadelphia plays in Denver. Like, there could be some results that go Atlanta's way potentially. Obviously, somebody has to lose between Miami and Charlotte that will matter to the Hawks. The Hawks will be rooting for the Thunder tonight against the Magic, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll get into all that more later on. But at the very least, if the Hawks win, they won't lose ground, and they have a chance to keep rising and rising up the standings, as we'll talk about more after the game on Wednesday with a full breakdown, as we always would on this podcast. Okay, in a second, I will be talking about the rest of the show, basically a look at the NCAA tournament through the lens of the NBA draft, because it's a big time of year in basketball circles, even a lot of casual fans, first-time NBA draft observers, all that stuff. It's a good time to kind of dive in starting this week. We'll get into all that and more in just one moment. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood Prediction Markets changes the game. It's people moving the action, so when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but I never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now you can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. It's all there for you with college hoops this time of year. From early tip-offs, West Coast shootouts that are late at night. There's always action on the board in the month of March. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into bigger potential payouts with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay that you want to, including rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever what you're actually looking for on that particular day. You can mix point spreads, money lines, totals, player props, etc., together to match exactly how you think this slate will actually play out. And then you can apply the profit boost, instantly bump up that potential payout in your direction. And of course, they have you covered at FanDuel across the board with other sports offerings. They have all stuff that you need on the NBA, which I talk about all the time on this podcast. Plus, they have FanDuel has baseball, they have football, they have hockey, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so much more. You can go safe, you can go bold, you can grab the team that you've actually been following all season long. It is your parlay, your style, and now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Thank you for joining us on today's podcast, making Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. If you ever want to go ad-free or get some more perks, you can join the Everydayer Club right now. If you sign up before the NCAA Tournament tips off this week, you actually get into our Everydayer Club bracket pool on Discord for a chance to win Locked On merch. And right now, you can use the code MARCH to get your first month free with the Everydayer Club. Head to lockedonhawks.supercast.com to learn more. So there's lots of focus throughout the season on the NBA draft. That's the reality, if you're a sicko or not. Not everybody follows this stuff all the time. I'm fully aware of that. College basketball is something I still love. I still cover the sport, and it's a big deal. I love the draft, for example, and the Hawks have obviously some prime draft real estate this time of year. So the NCAA tournament begins this week. It's kind of the time that everyone, even when you're not diving in to that point, kind of starts to talk about the draft a little bit more because the guys are basically in the news. And if the season ended today, on Tuesday, the Pelicans would be 6th in lottery odds, and the Bucks would be 10th in lottery odds. That matters to the Hawks because the Hawks have the better of those two teams pick when the lottery is over. So they have roughly the same odds of landing a top 4 pick right now that like the Kings and the Jazz have at this moment, despite being a team that's a lot better than those teams, obviously. I'll save that deep dive for another day. The Hawks also have basically have a top 10 projected pick in that pick with some upside beyond that. And they have another pick that will be like in the low to mid 20s. Maybe it's like 22, maybe it's 25, but it's the Cavs pick as part of a pick swap in a trade for DeAndre Hunter, etc. The Hawks have 2 first-round picks, and then they have a late second-rounder via Boston that will be in the 50s. So that's part of why I'm talking about this now. Also, again, just the draft is a big deal, and it's that time of year. So once a year on this podcast, I talk about college basketball games more, and that's right now, basically because people always ask. I got 4 questions this week. 4. I won't read them all, but they were all basically the same question. Like, who should I watch? Which teams should I focus on when it comes to the NBA draft or the NCAA tournament? Hey, I'm not a college basketball watcher. Who should I watch? Etc. So first of all, I recommend CBS has an awesome bracket that has every single tip-off time and every single team. It's all in one sheet. So I look at that personally. It's in front of me right now. But on this little quick hitter, I'm not going to go deep on these guys. That would be for later. If you're new to the podcast this year, even when the Hawks don't have a top pick, I always do a ton of draft coverage. Basically, as soon as the Hawks are eliminated from the postseason, whatever that might be, it'll be basically all draft all the time until the draft. But even between now and then, like I'll sprinkle in a draft episode every month, every 6 weeks. If I run the show a couple weeks ago on this podcast, I've had Brian Schroeder on the show already this cycle. So it's a big topic on the pod. I love the draft. But on this little discussion, I have like 50, 60 prospects that I'll at least mention in passing. I could miss some deeper guys, but by the way, there are some clear first-round college guys that didn't even make the tournament. Steinbach at Washington is probably the number one example of that, potential lottery pick. They missed the tournament. Baylor missed the tournament. They have 2 potential first-round picks, so that those guys won't be included here. Also, there's some injury stuff that I'll kind of talk about in brief form. So my apologies for kind of the rambling style of this, but it's mostly to say, hey, these are some guys and some teams to keep an eye on over the next few days because, look, the reality is some of these guys will lose in the first round. And then they'll be done. But then later on, if some teams will make deep runs, like for instance, the number 1 seeds, you got Duke's got prospects, Michigan, Arizona, they all have real prospects this year, which makes it a lot more fun if you're an NBA draft only consumer of the NCAA tournament. With that said, we'll kind of go region by region quickly here to kind of just highlight some players. In the East region, which is the region that has Duke as the number 1 seed, here are some guys. We'll start with Duke. Cam Boozer is a top 3 pick at worst. He's been the best player in the country this season in college basketball. Not always not always do you see the top prospects be the top players. Cam Boozer has been the best player in the country, full stop. He will be National Player of the Year despite being an 18-year-old freshman, much like Cooper Flagg was last year, but even better, in my opinion, as a college basketball player. There are questions about his athleticism, for sure, how explosive he is, and I do get that, but I love him. He is polished. He is skilled. He is physical. He is strong. He wins everywhere. AAU, national team, he just wins everywhere he ever goes, has a great feel for the game. I really like Boozer a lot. I don't think he has to be number 1. I think that basically at this point, if you have Boozer, Darren Peterson, or AJ DeBonta number 1, I'm okay with any of those 3. I'll have I should say potentially have a more firm thought on that by the time the draft arrives. But right now, all 3 of those guys make sense to me. Boozer's one of them. He's awesome. He's the headliner of the region and also of Duke's team. He's not alone on Duke, though. They have Patrick Ngangba, their sophomore center. He actually was hurt in the ACC tournament and missed those games. He could play as soon as this weekend. He is a potential top 20-ish pick as a traditional center prospect. Isaiah Evans is kind of a late first, early second, more of a 6'6" wing player for Duke. Interesting player. Dame Sarr is a second rounder for me, but still definitely a draftable player. Defense first. He's that kind of stopper guy on the perimeter defensively. And then even Malik Brown, I would say maybe in the second round. Caleb Foster is hurt right now. He could be at least in the mix as well. So they've got 5-6 guys on Duke's roster that could be drafted. And Boozer is the headliner, but Ngangba and even Evans could be in the first round by the end. Also in the East region is Darren Peterson, who plays for Kansas. Peterson has been the number 1 discussed player probably this year for draft purposes because of the discourse around his injuries and his availability, all that stuff. Some of that's kind of toned down recently. He's been playing more games and finishing games, etc. I remain quite high on him. Number 1 overall kind of player. All 3 of those guys, plus maybe even Caleb Wilson, would be a number 1 over pick in a lot of drafts. I don't love the Kansas roster beyond Darren Peterson, but he is must-watch stuff for Hawks fans in the event that the Hawks get lucky with the lottery with the Pelicans and Bucks pick. Peterson's awesome. And by the way, you could get a Sweet 16 matchup, which will be next weekend between Duke and Boozer and Kansas and Peterson. I won't say it's going to happen for sure, but it definitely could happen, and that would be a lot of fun to watch. Elsewhere on Kansas, you got Floyd Badunga, a potential top 40-ish pick. Big man, could be a Hawks target with that second first-round pick. And then maybe guys like Bryson Tiller or Melvin Council in the second round out of Kansas. Louisville has Michael Brown in that same region. He is a one-and-done lead guard. He's been banged up at times this year, did not play in the ACC tournament, but a potential top 10 pick that could be right in the middle of the Hawks range. 6'5", really skilled player. As always with like the non-elite guys, there's a split on him, but certainly has the upside you would look for. It has enough size to where he's not going to be like picked on a ton, all that stuff. A very interesting player if he plays. Not a guarantee that he plays. I think he's going to play, and we'll see. Also, maybe Ryan Conwell in the second round out of Louisville as well. Same region. UConn is the 2 seed in that region. They are obviously awesome as a program. Braylon Mullins is the guy to watch in the first round, probably big-time wing shooter. End of the season kind of in a slump, but kind of guy who can go back to school potentially. He might make $1 billion next year at UConn if he goes back. But if he has a great week, he could be a lottery pick and have to go. So we'll see on that. But a guy that could be probably not in the Bucks Pelicans range pick, but maybe somewhere in the middle if the Hawks were to trade for a pick or whatever. He's probably like kind of in between the Hawks picks, but still. Alex Caravan is an old player, but a potential 3-and-D prospect, top 45 guy probably. And then maybe later on, Silas Demery, Terrace Reed, Solo Ball in the second round. St. John's they're vastly understated in the NBA draft. That's in the college basketball portion of this, but alas. Zuby Ejiofor is the guy there, maybe like a top 45 pick, 6'9" big, awesome this season after transferring to St. John's. And then maybe Dillon Mitchell later on in the draft. Ohio State plays TCU in the first round. Both teams have like one player to watch. Bruce Thornton is a veteran guy, also a local product from Atlanta out of Milton High School. Awesome college player, probably going to be drafted, and I think he probably should be drafted in the second round. David Punch is TCU's guy. Probably should come back to school, honestly, but he's a very interesting 2027 prospect if he comes back and could go in the second round if he were to leave this year. And then from there, UCLA Donovan Dent is the guy there. Not a huge NBA prospect, but an All-American level college player and a guy that I do like. And then Michigan State has Cohen Carr and Jeremy Fears. Both of them have eligibility left in college, so they might go back. But Cohen Carr is a highlight-making athlete, and Fears is like a second-round potential veteran point guard who's been an All-American level player this year at Michigan State. That is the East region in quick fashion. Let's go to the South. In the South, the headlining teams are Florida and Houston, 1 and 2 seeds. Florida has Thomas Houck. He's probably their number one prospect, first-round potential pick. I've not always been huge on him, but a first-round capable player, 6'9" forward, like kind of versatile, doesn't have a ton of upside, I don't think, but checks a lot of boxes. He's won at Florida, two-way player. I get it. I get that appeal. And they have 2 veteran bigs, Alex Condon and Ruben Chinyello. They're like second-round kind of, pretty basic bigs. Houston is pretty loaded. Kingston Flemings is a top 5 guy for me right now. Big physical point guard. I really like him. First step, defensive potential, feel for the game, big shot maker, like a big fan of his game. He could be a Hawk very easily in a few months. Chris Sinak is a potential one and done big if he has a good tournament. He's been up and down this year, but a potential first round pick, 6'9", 6'10", rangy, athletic. If you can figure it out kind of the way to play, like learn how to play the game at the highest levels, then I can kind of see that being a first round pick. I love JoJo Tugler, who's a defense first. Like I think he's probably maybe been the best defender in the country the last couple of years. Like he's been that ridiculous. Offensively limited for sure, but a potential like top 40 pick. And then they have some veteran guards, Emmanuel Sharp and Miles Uzan, maybe second round picks out of Houston. Illinois has Keaton Wagler, who's been a revelation this year. He was a sub top 100 recruit. Ended up being one of the best 10, 15 players in college basketball this year as a freshman and is going to be going in the lottery almost certainly in June. 6'6" guard, not a super athletic guy, but has a ton of other skills, passing, shooting, feel. He's pretty skinny, but I do like him. Very obviously like skilled player and would fit in a lot of places. And then Illinois also has Colin Boswell and David Merkovich in the second round. North Carolina has Caleb Wilson, but he's not playing, unfortunately. Top 5 pick for me. Clearly, he's number 4 on my board right now. He's injured out for the season, so he won't be playing. I just want to at least mention that. Henry Vasar is their best prospect remaining, top 40-ish player at center. 7-footer, average 17-9 this year at UNC. Like, real prospect, not an elite one, but certainly a draftable player. Elsewhere, Iowa and Vanderbilt have first-round guards. Iowa has Bennett Sturts, a potential top 20 pick, maybe higher than that. Was it Drake previously? Transferred to Iowa and played at an awesome level this year, All-American kind of stuff. Averaged 20 a game in the Big Ten. Big-time shooter, super skilled. Not a huge athlete, but certainly a first-round talent. And then Vandy has Tyler Tanner, who's very small, but averaged like 20 a game in the SEC. Competes defensively. He is very, 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 very small, but I do get it. He's been an internet darling for a while and for understandable reasons. I'm a fan of his. I don't know how high I take him, but certainly a guy who could go in the first round if he comes out in the draft. And then finally, just as a throw in at the end, Nebraska has Price Sanford, a guy that is a big time shooter. And I think could be like a top 50 pick that could be, second round, interesting kind of, bench shooter kind of target off of that team, which by the way, Nebraska on a college basketball level is aiming for its first NCAA tournament win in the history of the program. That is wild, and they can get it if they win this week. Hopefully they do, just to get that monkey off their back, but we'll see, and I like Price Sanford quite a bit. Okay, regions to come, Midwest on the way with Michigan, and then in the West with BYU, Arkansas, Arizona, etc. We'll get into all of that and more in just one moment. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing. The one position you actually have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure is on, you actually need the right hire. This is the job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And Indeed, they can help you reach the people that actually fit what you're looking for when it comes to skills, experience, location, etc. So that's just not just hoping the right person stumbles across your post on accident. Here's how that actually says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you on this podcast, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, don't waste time with searches and searches and searches. Actually use your time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. That brings less stress, less time wasted, and crucially, more results. If you actually need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners to the podcast, we're going to $75 sponsored job credit. It'll help you get your job the premium status it actually deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right, we'll dive back in now to the NCAA tournament through the lens of the NBA draft. And in the Midwest region, which is the Michigan #1 seed region, always transparent, I'm a Michigan fan. I am also not always high on all Michigan prospects. Last year, for example, Danny Wolf went in the first round. I didn't like Danny Wolf very much as a prospect. Jet Howard was a recent example of a guy who I was much lower on. Back in the day, Tim Hardaway Jr., I was much lower on. So I'm not always high on Michigan players. I'm objective about Michigan players. Say that out loud, but I'm a Michigan fan, full transparency. They have 3 first-round guys on most boards. Yaxel Lindeborg is the same age as Jonathan Kuminga and is playing college basketball right now. But he was Big Ten Player of the Year. He's been playing out of position this year at Michigan. I don't love Yax as a prospect. He is a first-round talent for sure. Probably for me, more like in the late lottery into the 20s maybe. He might go higher than that, but a guy who is a two-way potential combo forward who's interesting. Adai Mara is my favorite probably of the prospects of Michigan. 7'3", junior center, elite defender, rim protector, has some real passing chops. Could be a lottery pick by the end, but certainly someone I'd be looking at if I was the Hawks if he's available in the 20s. And then Morez Johnson, I just love, honestly. Not the cleanest fit of the Hawks probably because he's more of a smaller energy big, but he has a 7'2" wingspan, has some shooting chops that are developing there, plays very hard, athletic player. I like him more probably elsewhere, but I think I would be okay with him landing in Atlanta as well. I'm a big fan of his game. Tennessee, in the same region, has Nate Ament. He was way better in the second half of the season after he fell like a stone on draft boards earlier this year. Coming into the season, he was like a top 5 guy on a lot of boards. He went from that to being like out of the first round on a lot of boards, and now he's back in like the lottery range. He's 6'9", 6'10". He's gotten some Ricochet comps, so kind of an odd fit in Atlanta if that were to be the case, but he's been good lately. I don't love him as prospect, but certainly someone that I would have like in the late lottery to mid first round kind of range. And Tennessee also has Jacoby Gillespie as a second round pick as well. Alabama has LeBaron Philon. If you listened to the podcast a couple weeks ago with Ben Pfeiffer, he loves LeBaron Philon. I'm a little bit lower, but he's certainly a top 20 guy for me. He could score. Didn't defend that well this year, but clearly has a first round talent in his mix. And then I'd say Amari Allen is like a 6'8" forward, could be a first round pick, late first, early second, with some interesting tools to his game. Iowa State is the 2 seed in that region. They have a like less NBA focused team, but Joshua Jefferson is a late first round pick for me. All-American college guy, older player, like a 6'8", 6'9" forward with a lot to like. Milan Momcilovic is a big time shooter. Second round pick for me probably, but still someone who can be an NBA player. And then Tamin Lipsey in the same range, probably top 40, top 50 guy in the second round. Texas Tech has 1 big-time prospect for me, and that's Christian Anderson, a first-round guard, averaged like 19 and 8 in the Big 12, very polished player, so has some off-ball stuff as well, crafty, skilled, could be in that Cavs pick range, and I do like him as a potential first-round pick for a lot of teams. Kentucky is down this year in the NBA draft. They have Jaden Quaintance, who's their best prospect. He's not played for like 2 months. I think he probably won't play, so we'll see on that front. And then they have Otega Owe, who's for me like a top 50 guy. And then maybe Malachi Moreno if he stays in the draft, but not a huge prospect there. Santa Clara has one guy, Alan Graves, that's more of an NBA draft Twitter darling, but I do like him. Has big stock numbers defensively, super fun and smart player to watch. They played Kentucky in the first round. And then Georgia, for the Bulldogs fans among us, I think Blue Kane and Jeremiah Wilkinson are both second round type of picks. Nobody beyond that, but that's a decent region of players. And then lastly, before we get out of here, the West region. The best college team is Arizona by a lot. They have Braden Burries, who's a lottery type of guy, kind of a combo guard, small 2 guard, ball screen operator, big time shooter, a lot to like there, like 6'4", 6'5". I think he's the best prospect. We'll see. Koa Pete's the other one on that team. Late first rounder for me. Probably others a little bit higher on him. He's more of a guy that like I think profiles better as like a dominant college player. He might be like a $5 million college player next year, but certainly could go in the first round if he comes out. Mount Krivas as center. Him and Adai Mara are the 2 potential like monstrous anchor defensive centers in the NBA that could go in the late first of this draft. I think Ivan Karchenkov is a guy that I really like as well, would be top 40-ish for me in this draft out of Arizona. And then maybe Jaden Bradley late in that class. Elsewhere in the West, the best prospect is AJ DeMonsa out of BYU. They're going to face a major conference team in round 1 and then probably Gonzaga in round 2. So they could be out fairly quickly. They've been struggling recently. That's not because of DeMonsa. It's because their second best player, Richie Saunders, got hurt and they're kind of deficient as a result of that. DeMonsa's been awesome this year. I am higher on him now than I was 6 months ago for sure. He's 13 games in a row with 20 points or more. He's been averaging like 29 points a game in that sample size in college. That's crazy. He's been awesome this year. Clear top 3 guy and a two-way forward that every team is looking for at the star level. The other guy who's really hot right now is Arkansas guard Darius Acuff. He dating back to late January, he's averaging 27 points and 7 assists per game over the last 14, shooting like crazy from 3. He's a real scorer, real shooter. He's polarizing because he's a small guard who projects to be a bad defender, and that is definitely out of vogue right now as someone who covered Trae Young, but also Ja Morant's stock is way down. Like that archetype is not popular right now. But Acuff has been awesome, and I know he has a lot of huge fans, which is totally understandable. Like every day I have someone that says the Hawks should take him. I get what you're saying. I would be a little surprised if the Hawks wanted to go back down the road of small, on-ball, no defense guard, but maybe they'll do that. I don't know. But anyway, they have two matchups early in the tournament that could be like big number games for him against bad defenses. But I would love to see Arkansas, Arizona, Sweet 16. If that happens, that'd be fun to watch across the board. But I'm not a cuff for the top 5. I've seen that a lot recently. I'm not quite there with him, but lottery pick for sure. Talented player. I get it. He's been really, really good. And nothing negative at all. He's been just tremendous for a little while now. They also have Malik Thomas and Trevon Brazile, as well as Billy Richmond as potential second-round picks on that Arkansas roster. I talked about Arizona already. Purdue is not a huge NBA draft team, although they are good in college. Braden Smith is potentially the NCAA all-time assist leader pretty soon. Second-round pick for me, but certainly not a huge, flashy guy. By the way, they play Queens in the first round. Queens is allowing 102 points a game against major conference teams this year, so that could be a fireworks show early on. Wisconsin has John Blackwell and Nick Boyd, who are both awesome college players. Probably not top 40 picks for me, but certainly relevant in the draft, a la John Tanji last year. College basketball-wise, they play High Point in the first round. That should be a fun game. And then Miami has Shelton Henderson, who's probably not a guy that I would take high this year, but he's the best the best prospect in that game against Missouri in the first round, and we'll see. And I'm recording this as the first 4 is happening. So Texas plays NC State literally tonight. So one team will advance. For Texas, Dalen Swain is a first-round pick, probably in some circles. And then NC State has Paul McNeil and Darion Williams, who are probably top 50 kind of guys in their class as well. So that was intentionally quick and broad, but we got through 50, 60 players to talk about. And maybe later on we'll kind of do more of a deep dive into this. I will be going to the Final Four, as I do pretty much every year, to cover college basketball and also draft prospects. So I'll have some thoughts from there when we get there, and a lot to watch. So one more time, if you're a Hawks fan, root against the Bucks, root against the Pelicans, root for ping pong balls, and then root against the Cavs too, to some degree, because that Cavs pick could be juicier if it's like 20-1 or 22 versus 27-28. So we'll see. Anyway, I'll be back on this podcast after the Hawks face the Mavericks. By the way, it's an 8:30 game Eastern time on Wednesday, so a late one at least in the recent parlance of the Hawks. So stay tuned for that one. Breakdown coming as always within the podcast, and please make us your first listen each and every day. Subscribe to the podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Check out the entire Locked On Podcast Network as well. Follow the show on X/Twitter at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. Follow me on Blue Sky BT Rowland, and then follow my non-podcast coverage of the Hawks at patreon.com/BT Rowland. Everybody, stay tuned for a podcast in about 24 hours, and we'll see you after the Hawks take on the Mavericks.